Hello, everyone. This is part 2 of session 13 of Pre-Socratics to Augustine, also called History of Philosophy 1. We are still talking about Plato's theory of the tripartite soul, the soul that has three, parts is a kind of not ideal term for this because it's not as if literally Plato's thinking that somehow in your head or in your mind or whatever, there are like three chunks. Rather, the thought is that someone's psychology, human psychology, is such that we need at least three, what today we might call subsystems. Systems that somehow in total belong to someone's psychology or someone's mind, but they have distinctive functions and they have distinctive kind of natures and do distinctive things. And for that reason, it makes sense to call them, in today's terminology, subsystems of the mind, and in Plato's terminology, parts of the soul. The three parts of the soul are reason, spirit, and appetitive desire. And the plan for today's recording simply is to say a little bit more about how Plato conceives of these three parts. That is a hugely contested question. And maybe it is one of the few questions where scholars have really changed their mind in the past 20 decades or so. Now, why would that be? In the olden days, until the 70s or 80s, the research and scholarship on Plato was greatly shaped by thinking about a distinction between reason and desire that we know from modern philosophy. Often Hume is named as an important figure here, but you can also think of other modern philosophers. And there the thought is, in really kind of broad strokes kind of way, that reason is not at all something that comes with feelings or emotion or any kind of affective coloring. So that reason would just be a kind of ability to make inferences or to think. Say, reason would be what enables you to think, something theoretical, but there would be no layer to this that is in any way involving the emotions or affect or anything like this. And that is a prevalent model of thinking about reason in modern philosophy. And then reason really is kind of contrasted with desire, where desire is the place for like all the feelings, all the emotions, all the affect, anger and shame and desires, aversions, all of that. Now, it has sort of taken scholars quite a bit of time to see that that is sort of genuinely and fundamentally not how Plato conceives of the difference between reason and desire. And because that is so kind of astonishing, because to us, the modern distinction is familiar, it has sort of really attracted scholars to think through how can we understand Plato's proposal and why is it, what might be Plato's reasons for putting forward an idea that is so different from ours. So on Plato's proposal, reason, spirit, and desire each has a so-called affective or desiderative dimension, meaning a dimension of, feeling, emotion, wanting, not wanting, avoidance, aversion, and so on and so forth. Plus, each has a so-called cognitive dimension, where cognition is, broadly speaking, thinking. So what does that mean? The thought is that reason is not just as it were a kind of motivationally inert ability to think. It is an ability to think, but reason also has things that it loves. And what does that mean? Well, reason loves the truth and knowledge. And the thought is that when you reason about something, when you think about something, you want to get it right. And there is something kind of pleasurable. There's something kind of nice and enjoyable about getting it right, about getting something. Like the moment when you see how something works, that is a good feeling. And there actually are, according to Plato and Aristotle, so-called pleasures of reason. The thought is that reasoning is not at all kind of affectively colorless. Rather, there is a dimension to it which engages our feelings and affect. And reason loves the truth. And spirit, this second part of the soul, that is maybe the most contentious part of the soul. The thought is that there is something to human psychology which is neither just reasoning, nor is it appetitive desire. Rather, you can think of it as the social dimension of our psychology. It is concerned with how we look in the eyes of others and in our own eyes. We are ashamed when we think we did the wrong thing, when we fail according to our own standards. We are angry when we feel that there is injustice. Those kinds of emotions, Plato thinks, are a distinctive kind of things going on in the human soul. So the proposal is that spirit has an affective dimension, which is quite evident, namely being angry, being ashamed, that kind of thing, but also has a cognitive dimension, namely when you are angry, then presumably that involves the thought that some injustice has happened. So to be angry at X is to think that X has unjustly happened, and some other things, but some thought like that is also involved. And appetitive desire then is desire like, being hungry and thirsty and so on. And that again has evidently an affective or desiderative component, but it also has a cognitive component where this would involve thinking something like, the ice cream looks good. So I think this looks good, and that's part of me wanting it. So the assignment that I have for you today is just to think through the proposal that reason, spirit, and desire, all three of them have both a cognitive and a desiderative dimension. And I want you to think specifically about reason and just to form your own view on what might be an example, an instance of reasoning where Plato's idea that reasoning has an affective dimension is compelling.